EA was the second press conference of the day, and they weren't really all that exciting compared to even the 360's or Microsoft's press conference. They basically kicked things off with a trailer and gameplay footage of Deep Space 3. Now, this really, I don't know if it's a continuation of the Deep Space or how true that it kept from that. Graphics didn't really seem to be anything overly special, and the gameplay looked a little old as well. One of the big, I don't know if it's necessarily reveals, but one of the big things that it did show was the multiplayer functionality of the game, or co-op of the game. It really wasn't true visible on how all that mechanic worked during the demo. So I can't really go into any detail or opinion on that. It just felt like an old game, that utilizes some modern features. It may be a perfectly good continuation of Deep Space 2. I don't really know, but that's kind of how it viewed it. Next up, we enter into Madden 13, and we finally get an explanation on why this is the most impressive Madden game to date. Is that it uses the Infinity engine, which apparently cost EA some pretty shiny coins on that. The engine basically allows them to actually have physics and weight consequences to their players out on the field, so that the players would act accordingly. Tackles and stuff like that would act accordingly to the player instead of being kind of a one-size-fits-all type of mechanic. They didn't show really anyone playing this. I know they did show Joe Montana playing it at the Microsoft conference. They did bring in Michael Irving, though he didn't play. So it's kind of, I can't get a feel if it's supposed to be a new engine with new options and a new duck dive and shake off mechanics and stuff like that. My big question is how is that going to be controlled? It seems more complicated than your typical Madden game, and I don't mean that necessarily as an insulting manner, but it just seems like it changes the formula enough so that it's not just a simple sit down, run, play, do that type of stuff. It kind of changes the formula of the series a little bit. In addition to that, some additional functionality as far as communication to the outside world is added to as well. Like you can get alerts on your phone or whatever of a player that you could purchase, or stats or whatever. However all that's going to work, so forth. Really, again, I think that this is kind of an odd approach. Generally, I mean, again, I don't know how. I'm sure there's tons of people out there that are more involved in the game, but it just feels that it's not just to sit down and play with your group of friends anymore. It's actually going to take time outside to be successful and stuff like that. So, be curious on how well all of this gets how all this is received by the typical normal fans. After all that, with Madden, we enter into the SimCity portion of the conference. First up is SimCity Social, which there wasn't a whole lot of information to go off of here. It's supposed to be a game or something attached to Facebook or part of Facebook. That's I don't know if it's a group effect or if it's more kind of like a Sims builder in addition to SimCity. Nothing was really said, and what little was shown didn't exactly explain the mechanics. Though after that, they went into the True Blue SimCity game, and this, I got to say, I'm excited for. A huge fan of SimCity 2000. It's been a very long time since we actually had a new, good, kind of staying true to the original concept SimCity game. So this definitely looks the part. You can build your cities and has a lot of some of the more modern things like nuclear plants and airports and stuff like that. But one of kind of the neat features about the game is the fact that it's actually a multiplayer, not necessarily co-op, but it's a multiplayer game where you can build your city next to someone else or whatever, and what you do in your city could affect their city and so forth. So not a whole lot was actually told about it, but there was a lot shown. So this is definitely one of those games that I am very excited for, and would love to hear more about. And it's probably going to be, in addition to the Splinter Cell that I mentioned in the 360 review, this is probably one that I'm going to try and see if I can't dig up some more information on after the press conferences and see if I can't post some more information on it. But this one's got me quite excited on. It just seems like it's a pretty fun game. So, with that out of the way, we turn the tide to something that, should I say, is more your typical EA, and that is with Battlefield 3 Premium. Basically, buy the game again, and you get expansion packs and with it, and a bunch of other swag that you would get along with it. You know, it's just a way that they can get more money out of it than the normal expansion packs. According to what they told us, what was actually in the expansion packs, it seems like it could have been just as easy, either some free or cheap DLC instead of actually having full-fledged expansions. But whatever, it's EA, and they're gonna milk this thing as much as it's worth. The expansions didn't look like it was anything overly new. It was basically just you're paying EA to set up scenarios for you. I think the addition of motorcycles is probably the biggest thing, but there was no real anything shown about it, except for that it's available. I think there's like 5 expansions to it, so it's kind of a trap. If you're with a group that want to play it, I guess I would say choose the expansions that you want and just pick that up or something. It's just a kind of it kind of feels more like a scam than it is actually worth the money, even if you are a fan of the game. Then after that, BioWare had their spot on the stage, or their time on the stage, and they talked about all the new things and stuff that is happening with the Star Wars Old Republic MMO. Now, they went through the whole rigmarole of, hey, we're the fastest, we had the most day one subscribers, yada yada, free content, whatever. Some of their biggest stuff was a new free-to-play trial or something like that. Actually, I don't even know if that's free to play. You may have to buy the box, and you just don't have a subscription for a while. But it's definitely, you know, that they're having issues with the game and stuff like that. It's not doing as well as they had hoped. So, of course, they're having to pump out new stuff to try and, you know, garner some more attention to it. I'm not saying it's bad or good or whatever. It's just had it's had a somewhat rocky last couple of months. And that's all that BioWare had, which, again, I think BioWare's the day of old is long gone, but you know, they didn't have anything else really to present at the show. After the Star Wars Old Republic and BioWare stuff, they brought out another first-person shooter, Medal of Honor Warfighter. Again, this is set more in a city or whatever. I don't really know how how this goes in with the other Medal of Honor series. It's just feels like just another first-person shooter, and really, honestly, I'm surprised at the number of first-person shooters that actually survive, or series even that actually can survive. I know multiplayer is kind of the main draw for a lot of these games, but you know, I would imagine players are going to have to be spread out pretty thin in order for all these games to actually be profitable. But whatever, it's another first-person shooter. You got some advanced tech to fight with. It's just another typical thing. Nothing. I didn't really see anything overly special in the gameplay that it was shown. So after that, we went into another sports section of the show with FIFA. Not really a whole lot else was told about this outside what was told at 360. Again, it used pretty much the same trailer and stuff like that, so nothing really new was revealed about the game. There wasn't anyone really controlling it on stage or demoing it or anything else like that, so you know, not a whole lot to say about it. And then they went into something incredibly odd with the UFC. They brought in supposedly the head honcho of the industry or whatever, and they went on this big huge thing about how EA is partnering him up with the UFC and to create this new game or whatever, but nothing was shown, not even a teaser. So it kind of felt like a big huge time waster. Like, hello, this is what we're doing and that's it. So whatever. Closing down with all the sports, we've got the next Need for Speed Most Wanted is the next game that they demoed and showed and stuff like that. Now, I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like Need for Speed is kind of like Madden, where a new one is getting introduced every year, but it didn't look anything special to me. You know, again, I could be looking more into you know, into the type of gameplay or I'm expecting more out of the gameplay than what we would ever get. It just seemed very normal. There is no getting out of the car in first person mode or whatever. It seems to be all driving, or at least that's all they mentioned. It just didn't feel anything overly special about it. Just another racing game, which seems that the demo was actually stacked into the player favor, so you couldn't really get a good judge of how everything worked anyways. And then the last game that they showed off, Crysis 3, which, again, it's just another first-person shooter. It's got co-op as well, I believe is what they were going for, and it just, again, the market is flooded with it. It looks stale. I mean, if you are a fan of the previous Crysis, then I have no doubt you're going to probably like the new one. Just, if you didn't like the previous ones, then this isn't going to be a convincing game changer for you. It looked somewhat decent. It just sort of pales to everything else that we've seen. So, and that was the EA conference. It was actually rather boring. Really, the SimCity stuff was the only thing that really piqued my interest, but the rest of it just wasn't really overly exciting to me. There wasn't anything special announced. There wasn't anything that wasn't already expected. And there really wasn't anything new. There wasn't a new IP. SimCity was the newest IP that you can claim that they really did anything with. So that was a conference. It was a pretty weak show. Definitely, Microsoft had the lead at this point. If we were going to judge the two of them, the EA is pretty much the weakest one. So, with that said, stay tuned for Ubisoft, Sony, and Nintendo. Thanks for watching. God bless.